So this is Dr. Paul Kovalski, and he's visited, this is your 417th National Park?
A little bit more, like 423
Okay, so
of
you
all the
hit them
units
all.
in the National Park System.
All right.
And bonjour, and I bring you greetings from the state of New Jersey. I also volunteer at the National Park Service at Delaware Water Gap National Park area. And since I visited all the units in 2016 and those that were created afterwards, I was pleasantly surprised to hear of St. Genevieve being added to the family of parks. And I was also very happy that it was a unit that celebrated history and European history in this area, which at that time was the wilderness for North America. And the thing that French came from a country where everything was sophisticated and had all the delicacies that you had, and ended up in an area that you know, you wondered where you're going to get water or shelter, whatever, and then built these beautiful historical structures here. And thank God they were preserved and kept for our generations to see or whatever. I did bring one brochure for Toby. This is from St. Croix International Island. This is an island that's the St. Croix River, which is the border between New Brunswick, Atlantic Province, and Maine. And it was a site where French came and actually set up a fort in like 1604, predating the Pilgrims. And it was a very interesting site, and it's an international historical site, the only park in our system that has that classification. And it's very remote, it's in the St. Croix River, but there are archaeological finds that are there. Actually, when they did some research, they found French bricks, certain type of bricks and pottery and other types of things. So it's important. So I'd like to give that to your collection. And one of the things I would also encourage other folks to do with the park system, we have this passport for the parks, and it's broken up into different sections around the country. And as you can see here, there's park stamps. And so today I'm going to get a park stamp from the newest park, St. Genevieve, into the passport book. And over 420 units, I have like 15 of these books or whatever. So, but that's the interesting part of that, encourages you to visit all these sites. And people could go online at nps.gov and pick a state and a park, and they could do research and homework beforehand and learn about the park, and then when you go there, it's reinforced by actually physically being in the site. So, but it's great to be here in the state of Missouri. It was a couple-day drive from New Jersey, but it was well worth the trip, and I appreciate Toby for all his work that he did, and I also want to commend your Senator, Blunt. Very important to preserve in place what we have here. We need legislative support there from the top level, and folks that also have a genuine interest in their home states or hometowns and to have this preserved. And I also agree that this could be a great walking park. I mean, it's just beautiful, just from what I've seen just coming in here. It really has a nice character, and it gives you a nice feeling. And then folks are dressed in you know, period dress, that will also add a lot to that.
When did you start your journey to the national parks?
Well, my parents took me obviously to parks when I was young or whatever, but when it was getting close to the centennial, I got a little bit more aggressive as far as visiting the parks. And like a beautiful park like this is basically open year-round. The parks up in Alaska are seasonal, and some of the parks, they say when you visit, it's a life experience of a lifetime, but it also takes a lifetime to prepare for it, because the seasons and weather change and whatever, and just getting there. Some of them were little bush planes, and if they wanted to fly, they flew. If they didn't or whatever, and they would just drop you off in the tundra, and you were on your own. So you really had to know, you know, how to survive and protect yourself against the elements. And then there are others that are like Guam, which celebrates the Guamanian history and culture, but also World War II. And those are access like, you know, larger flight, and also the Hawaiian parks. But part of my whole adventure about visiting all the national parks, it's like sometimes more fun getting there with just planning, you know, planning things with weather and other types of activities. In fact, to go to Guam, we had to go to China and to Korea, and then to go to Guam with my friend Mike. We went there, but it was very interesting. So, and different type of culture, and that's a nice thing with our national park system and I think our country as a whole. We're very honest and we celebrate everything. And there were other parks, there are trails, like the trails of the Trail of Tears, of the removal of Native Americans, which was a sad time in our history, but we also interpret that with the National Park Service. Back in my neck of the woods is Johnstown Flood, a national memorial, which was one of the largest disasters, natural disasters, and they talk about that. The Civil Rights Movement, Black history in the South. There are plenty of new sites. There's a new one that's being developed for Medgar Evers. So there's always things going on with the park system. And for any type of culture, any type of age, there's plenty of opportunity for people to learn and study about themselves and actually go to the sites that see that.
You talked about the adventure to get to the parks. I believe I've read one, but I guess the Aleutian Islands was probably the hardest one for you to get to?
Yes, yes. Aniakchak is a national preserve and monument. It's like an imploded volcano. And I talked to rangers that were stationed up there for years, and they never were able to get there because the weather's that bad. And because you have to fly there, and it's on the Aleutian chains, that's geography that's still developing, and two weather zones on both sides. So you're stuck in the middle, and there's a chance, the weather's just terrible. I mean, it's actually blown planes into the mountains. So once I visited that site in early 2016, I knew I could get the rest. It was just a little bit of work or whatever. And then a lot of the places don't have any, hospitality or lodging, so you have to prepare for yourself, especially those northern Alaska sites. And if the weather's bad, you can sit there, so.
Any favorites from the older trips?
If I had to pick one favorite, it's like if you're a parent and you have a couple of kids, who's your favorite? There is no favorite, just one who's better behaved maybe for that day. But if I had to pick one, it would be Glacier National Park in northern Montana. It also has a little international flavor because it's connected with Waterton Lakes in Alberta. It's a joint park, and it's just a gorgeous park out there. It's on the mountains, geology, botany, history, and also when the parks were being developed in the turn of the century, a lot of the railroads, Northern Pacific, Union Pacific, developed these beautiful lodges to get people have a place to stay. Because folks would be traveling from the east, and they wanted to see the wild park, but they also wanted to have the luxuries of, a restaurant and, lodging. And so the lodges are actually very great to visit because of their historical aspect. But Glacier is just a spectacular park. There's a road there called Go Into the Sun Road, which is most folks consider the #1 drive-in road in any park system in our country, and it goes over the Continental Divide, and just spectacular. Just the views are just a beautiful park, and it's also a little bit more remote, so it's a little bit more difficult to go to. So usually the folks that go to, it's not just summer vacation. They're going there to really appreciate it. If I had to pick one.
I just read that's a good winter destination too, because of the beauty of the park at this time of year.
Yes, if some roads would be closed, it's another thing if you're visiting to just obviously check before you go, plan accordingly.
What do you think the designation will mean for St. Genevieve? I know we've had some visitors already coming expressly to check it out and get the passport and see what the park's about here. What do you think it will mean over time for St. Genevieve National Historical Park?
Obviously, it's going to attract a lot of folks here, and usually the folks that are coming there maybe a little bit more educated or enlightened, that want to learn, so they're going to come there and maybe frequent the local restaurants or any other types of businesses that they might have, lodging, and just bring new folks and make it like a star in the state of Missouri. Because it'll be a nice thing, and people from cultural backgrounds, obviously French would come here, but anybody else that's interested in culture or history. From what I spoke to you about the architecture, I mean, there are architectural people that would want to come here and just see that, since it's so unique and it's so important that these areas were preserved and they weren't just knocked down and you have vinyl siding put on, that you have this type of architecture. So I think that's important also. But any place that I've visited where a new park came in or whatever, there's always been a new influx of folks coming to visit there from out of state. And a lot of us are involved maybe with lobbyists or whatever to support, contact our congressman or someone else and say this thing is important and get involved with that if there was some issue that came up to support, the park, even though it's not the state. A lot of the parks in our system were created by legislatures outside the park, just like Grand Teton. That was done by other folks from outside the park. And now it's part of the whole family that belongs to all of us, not just folks from Missouri and New Jersey, but they're welcome to all of us. So I think it'll do a lot for the community and, just enrich and also, like bragging rights that you have this great architecture here, which is great.
All right, thanks very much, I appreciate it.
Good, my pleasure. And we'll be back. Come out. This is the one that you had first?
The temporary, blue one's the temporary one we were given first,
Okay.
before
And then this is the one that the park,
the official misspelled stamp.
yeah. Is that the right date on there?
I think it says 17th, is it not?
Yeah.
Yep.
Done. Another one bites the dust? Beautiful. Merci beaucoup.